All right, y'all, what's going on? Welcome to Black and Gold Breakdown. I see a lot of people in the chat already. Very nice of you. Thank you so much for being here. Tuesday, June 18th, another 90-degree day in Pittsburgh as we keep getting through this heat wave, man. You guys know how I feel about heat. I had a tweet actually that's for some reason just blowing up talking about there's like a video of like a really like pretty snowstorm. Not even a snowstorm, it's just somewhere like a nice neighborhood and it's just snowing. And I was like, I would take that over 85 degrees 10 out of 10 times. And a lot of people had some opinions on that. So getting through this heat wave, it says on my little thing right here that it's was 92 was the high today. So getting through it. But I appreciate you guys for being here. I see a lot of you already in here. Concepts, Rob, Mark, Patriot Watch, who hates Justin Fields. I understand why you're here, but thanks for watching anyway. I do appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for being here. So I appreciate everybody for being here. If you remember a few weeks ago, we were talking about Russell Wilson. And basically, I wrote a piece, making the case for why he could work out in Pittsburgh. I did the same today for Justin Fields as to why, he could succeed in Pittsburgh. And in terms of what I've seen from him at OTAs and in camp, well, what I've seen from both of them is Russ looks like the better quarterback right now, which I think most people probably expected. Fields has shown what I somewhat expected in terms of athleticism and whatnot. Like, we know that he can run. There were some inconsistencies throughout different practices with accuracy, more towards the beginning of the offseason program. The last day of minicamp, or the second to last day of minicamp, Wednesday, I think was his best overall practice. He just looked really comfortable. His throws looked really good. So as time went on, he was getting better, but I would still say that Russ is, the shoe-in to start week one, which, again, most people expected. I see a few people in the comments saying they heard he looked bad. I don't think he looked bad. I think that Russ just looked better. But I don't think he looked bad by any means. And again, it's also hard to look bad in practice. So, take that with a grain of salt. But I think he looked fine. Had a few plays on the Wednesday practice that I was at, especially during 7 shots, or maybe it was the last day of OTAs I was at. They all kind of blend together, but there was one day of practice where he looked tremendous during 7 shots. It was definitely during OTAs, because the 7 shots and the team drills in which he stood out were during different practices. But regardless, he has had his moments throughout the offseason program. I'm excited to see what he can do in camp and preseason and once we get there. So, as I did with the Russell Wilson episode of this, made a couple graphics highlighting some stats that I found today for the written piece. And so here's what we will look at to start. So there's going to be 2 graphics just because there was a lot to fit onto one. So to start, in terms of him throwing downfield, him and Russ are very similar in the fact that they are still both very good at it. He was 10th in catchable pass percentage, 7th in passer rating, 5th in touchdown percentage, and he was the 4th highest graded PFF deep ball passer in 2023. Now, under pressure, a lot of people see quarterback production dip when guys are under pressure and when, shit hits the fan. Justin Fields, his play elevated. If anything, he was 4th in catchable pass percentage, and he was 3rd in on-target percentage. And then when we throw in on-the-move passing, he was one of the best passers in the NFL when throwing on the move. He was 1st in catchable pass percentage, and he's the only quarterback in the NFL who had a 100% catchable pass percentage of 15 or more air yards. Now, again, that was a minimum of 10 attempts. I went with 10 just because I didn't know off the top of my head how many he had since he was injured last year. So I just went with a base of 10. I think there was 47 quarterbacks who had who had that number, and amongst those with 10 plus attempts of 15 or more air yards, he was the only quarterback with a 100% catchable pass percentage in those situations. And he was first in on target percentage of passes that traveled 15 or more yards through the air. And in terms of running, we know how good he is on the ground. He's second in rushing first downs since 2022 for a quarterback, only to Jalen Hurts. Or I'm sorry, he's third. I actually need to fix that graphic. He's third behind Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. And then he's tied for seconds in rushes of 20 or more yards in 2022. He's tied with Derrick Henry that season, second only to Nick Chubb. So just, again, some stats to put together in terms of why he could work. Now, in terms of why he could work in the offense, we talked about it a little bit with Russell Wilson in terms of the deep ball passing. We know that they're going to do a nice bit of that in an Arthur Smith offense, especially off play action. And especially if they can get in those second and medium, second and short situations as they would like to. And so a lot of this will be a little bit repetitive in terms of why it could work. Because again, talking about why it could work with Russell Wilson is because he can still chuck it. Justin Fields can chuck it. And that was one of the things where, talking about the positives for Fields, that was arguably the biggest one. Outside of the obvious upside with the, athleticism and running ability, he's got a great deep ball arm. He can throw the thing downfield. He can chuck it. And Russell Wilson showed that he can also chuck it. So, again, this isn't to sit here and say that he's a perfect quarterback. He's not. No, we've talked about it on this show before. He's got to get better at getting through his reads, progressing. And hopefully in this offense, which, by the way, much better than a Luke Getsy offense. And I've talked about this on the show before as well. If you can go and watch Quarterback School, JT O'Sullivan breaks down the Chicago Bears offense last year. Incredibly critical of the Luke Getsy offense, and just the schematics of it just didn't make sense. And if you just want to become a smarter football fan in general, I highly suggest watching the Quarterback School and JT O'Sullivan. He's tremendous. So he did, again, I think he did at least one. Did at least one on the Bears offense and Luke Getsy. He might have done another. I've only watched one. And so again, Justin Fields not a perfect quarterback by any means, but a guy with a ton of upside. A lot of obvious upside. And in terms of what I think his ceiling is, or what career arc he could have, if he has anything close to like a Baker Mayfield arc this season, where, okay, he's kind of been a cast-off from the Bears, lands in Pittsburgh with an offense that could work, similar to what Baker Mayfield landed in with Dave Canales in Tampa Bay last year, then yeah, he can succeed. Now, again, I think it's going to be Russell Wilson week one. And unless Russell struggles, then I don't expect to see Fields in that capacity. I think we'll still see him in some way, shape, or form in some sort of, Justin Fields package, just because he is too dynamic to just not have on the field at all. But as long as Russ plays well, we'll probably not see Justin Fields as a starter. But again, in terms of just the things that he does well and has done well and did well last year, deep ball passing, which Russell Wilson also did tremendously well. And we know what he can do as a runner. But if he can have some sort of Baker Mayfield type year, should he be put in, if Russell Wilson struggles and Justin Fields just takes the offense and runs with it, then great. I don't think that Justin Fields is ever going to be, a top 10 quarterback, because unless he, really goes, I'm trying to think of like, if there is a quarterback Kurt Warner, I guess, would kind of be similar to that. But again, Kurt Warner, very different circumstances, where he went undrafted, Arena League, NFL Europe, back up to Trent Green, got in via injury, and then had 40 touchdowns and led the team to a Super Bowl. I'm just trying to think of like different scenarios in which, guys may not have had, the ideal start to their career, but had, you know, came back from the downs and ultimately had, a respectable career. If you have any examples, you can kind of drop them in the comments if you can think of any. Um, my point with Fields is that there's good upside as an athlete, as a deep ball passer, needs to get better at progressing, getting through his reads. And I think with, an offensive line that should be better than what he had at Chicago, weapons overall that were better than what he had in his totality in Chicago. I know he had DJ Moore last year. And by the way, when he had DJ Moore, ahead of getting injured, started to heat up. Had a stretch where he threw 8 touchdowns to only 1 interception. Had a really good stretch. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that Justin Fields is going to be an elite quarterback. I think that there's still a lot that we need to see for me to say that. Do I think that he can be? I mean, right now, I think he's a starting quarterback. Absolutely. He's one of the 32 best in the NFL. But do I think that, he's going to become, I don't know, a top 10 guy of the likes of Lamar or, what Jalen Hurts was a couple years ago? I don't think so. But again, that doesn't, and I've said this before, we need to start finding the middle grounds here. Because too often, especially with fans, it's either you're great or you suck. And I hate that way of thinking, in terms of, and we do a lot with quarterbacks too. You're either one of the 5 best in the NFL or you're terrible. And it's just a stupid way of thinking, stupid way of going about being a fan. So with Fields, I think the upside is that of a, top, 15 to 20 quarterback. Starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. He's already a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. But in order to continue to take that and grow, yes, there's things he needs to get better at. No doubt about that. I know a lot more comments are coming in. Fittipaldo reported the mess. Yeah, I know. I saw Ray had said something about Fields' inconsistencies. Like I said, early on throughout OTAs and minicamp. I don't even say minicamp. Like in minicamp, at least the day that I was there, I wasn't there Tuesday or Thursday. I was only given access Wednesday. The Wednesday of minicamp, which is day 2, he looked really good. And in terms of like overall, you could ask Ray what he sees. You could ask Kabali what he sees. You can ask Allen what he sees. You can ask Fireball, Chris Carter, me. Like, I think at the end of the day, some guys are going to have higher standards for some dudes. And if they don't meet those standards, then they'll, be a little bit outspoken about them. I don't know what Ray's standards are for Justin Fields. I'm not going to pretend to, talk to Ray a ton. But you could ask 10 guys on the beat, hey, what's Justin Fields look like? And you'll probably get you're going to get a mixed bag of answers. For me, overall, he looked much better near the end of minicamp and towards the end of OTAs than he did at the beginning of OTAs. There was clear progression. But I would still say that Russ looked like the better quarterback. Notice the Steelers also said, hold my beer to Jarrett by waving wide receiver. Yeah. Telling you, that's everybody got excited today. Now, all the best wishes to Denzel Mims. I didn't have any conversations with Denzel Mims throughout this, the past month or so. But, obviously when guys lose their job, tip of the cap, wish him the best. Hopefully he lands somewhere and, can try to earn a roster spot somewhere. So hope for the best with Denzel Mims. Fields is in a great position now, much better overall situation than Chicago, and can learn a lot from Russ. Yeah, and in terms of being a backup, I'm sure he would much rather be playing, but at the same time, to want to go to Pittsburgh, there's obviously reasons why he wanted to go there and come here. I think the stability and the Arthur Smith offense were definitely 2 reasons why. And I think learning and being with Russ and just having some form of, I don't know, calming presence maybe, but also the sense of competition. Like it's a good blend. It's a good blend. And I hope that I hope it works out, Need a starting QB in this league to win? Absolutely, you do. Definitely not going to disagree with you there. My point is, Fields is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Again, I don't think he's elite. I don't think that he has an elite ceiling. I think that his ceiling is being good. Right now, he hasn't reached that ceiling. Right now, he is clearly promising and has had flashes of very good, but has had issues with consistency. And look, we can attribute that to a medley of different things. Not to say that he's without fault, because he's not. As I said, he's got to get better at progressing. He's got to get better at getting through his reads. But he's also in a crap situation. But his athleticism can't be denied. His arm talent can't be denied. So he's a starting caliber quarterback. I don't think that that's much up for debate. Please, if you're some sort of expert on quarterbacks, you just wow. Let's just not get hateful, y'all. I'm just trying to do a show here, If you're gonna argue, do it in your own separate DMs. I'm not gonna run through an argument on comments. So I can also mute you too. So if it gets really annoying, that's what I'm gonna do. Haven't had to do that yet throughout the entirety of this show. Don't make me do it today, please. I don't feel like doing that right now. Stance on Justin Fields was better than Kenny. That's also a very low bar. Yes, he's much better than Kenny Pickett. That's not much for debate. Kenny Pickett was awful. Kenny Pickett still is awful. And there's clearly a much, 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 much higher ceiling for Justin Fields than there was Kenny Pickett. So when it comes to Fields, as I've said, he's a guy that's clearly talented. I think he has a ceiling of being good. Now, is there a world where he just figures it out in the right system with the right players around him and the right coordinator, right head coach? Absolutely. And could it be Pittsburgh? Sure. I hope it is. I really do. Obviously, being a Steelers fan, of course, I hope that. But in terms of, do I think that he has an elite ceiling? I don't think it's going to be an elite ceiling, but I think his ceiling is being that of being somebody who could be very good. I feel like CT ESPN is the most trusted, so stop it. I'm going down the CT ESPN rabbit hole. I think Fields can be what Lawrence is now. Look, we need to stop disrespecting Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is evaluating quarterback play. You can't just look at box scores and say, all right, this guy's good, this guy's bad. Trevor Lawrence is the ultimate example of that. I just did a long-ass piece on USA Today talking in some part about Trevor Lawrence. I did a standalone piece on Trevor Lawrence a few weeks ago, and then I just did one on the quarterback market that featured Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is very good. And that is a perfect example of you can't just look at box scores and determine your opinions on quarterbacks. So I encourage, I'm not trying to call you out concepts or anything like that. I'm just saying we need to, when developing opinions about players, it's much more than just baseline stats. So, because again, you can look at a lot of, Tua's stats. A lot of them were better than Mahomes. I promise you 0.000% of people are taking Tua over Mahomes, And if you say you are, then I question your knowledge. We don't know what Fields can be based on that Chicago offense. Yes and no. Look, we know what he is athletically. I mean, he's had touchdown runs of 67, 61, 57. We know how athletic he is. And we've seen him make some throws downfield that have been tremendous. He made one, was it 2022 against the Giants? He made a pass 60 yards downfield to Darnell Mooney. He made one last year on the run against Cleveland in the pouring rain to Robert Tonyan, and he just right in his hands, and Tonyan dropped it. So I mean, we know what the arm talent is. We know how athletic he is. We know what he can do on the run. There's a lot of things that if you watch him, you can say, okay, yeah, there's something there. So, yeah, I think that with Fields, if and when he gets on the field as a starter this season, especially in this offense, I think we're going to see some good things. Again, not going to be perfect because I don't think that he's at that level of a top 10 guy. I don't think that's really debatable. But again, he's in that tier of guys that you can win with the right circumstance. And right now, I mean, the Steelers have on paper top 5 defense, good offensive line. You would like to see them get one more weapon, which I mean, today Twitter was buzzing because they released Denzel Mims, and everybody was like, "Oh, a trade's coming." So I think he's one of those guys that put him in the right situation, he can make things happen. But I don't think he's a guy that is going to put a team on his. He's not going to put a team on his back and win 10 games with. He had to do it over the past couple years, and didn't exactly go well in Chicago. Again, that doesn't make him a bad quarterback, because I do think that he is a starting caliber quarterback. But things just didn't work out. And again, he's not without fault because there are things that he has to improve on. But I would say a lot of that fault goes to Luke Getsy, Matt Eberflus. The lack of talent around him before last season, and even getting DJ Moore. I mean, very similar to what the Steelers have right now, where okay, yeah, you got DJ Moore and who, So I think that in this circumstance with Pittsburgh, in this offense especially, where you look at the 2019-2020 Titans, where Arthur Smith resurrected the career of Ryan Tannehill and utilized his legs more than people remember. Like, go and watch, especially 2019. Go and watch how much they run with Ryan Tannehill, especially in the red zone. Like, if you're inside the 5, have a Justin Fields package for that, especially. Because that's something that you can take advantage of. Like, I think a red zone package that features, like, if you go heavy personnel with Darnell Washington, Justin Fields, I think that could be very fun. I think it would work a lot more than it wouldn't. I don't think that there's going to be, negative plays that would take place. So overall, I think Fields is in a good spot. Again, Pittsburgh still needs to get another receiver to put on the outside. And, we talked about it yesterday with all the Ayuk stuff, which is still ongoing. And we'll see who it ends up being. But I'm excited to see what comes of this. This is a good point. Russ was 20 touchdowns, 1 interception in the red zone last year. I didn't say just take Russ out of the red zone. Remember, I'm not going to say, okay, as soon as they get in the red zone, Justin Fields, you're the quarterback until, we score or kick a field goal. I'm not saying that. But, I mean, if you have a guy like that, use him. I remember when the Jets got Tebow, and somebody made a suggestion. Okay, Mark Sanchez can lead them down into the red zone, and then as soon as they get there, take Mark Sanchez out and put Tim Tebow in. It's just hilarious. Now, this isn't a Mark Sanchez, Tim Tebow situation because Mark Sanchez wasn't good. Honestly, like, look at those Jets teams. That's probably the last case we'll see of like a quarterback get to an AFC title game with those, like, that bad a performance. Because they went to the AFC title game Sanchez's rookie year. Yeah, it was in 2009. They went to the AFC title game in 2009. Mark Sanchez that year threw 12 touchdowns and 20 picks. And they got to the AFC title game because their defense was that good. They got there next year, again, because they went to Pittsburgh and they lost. But I think that might be like, unless I'm missing one in between. I guess the Broncos in um, Peyton's last year, he wasn't great. He had 9-17, but they had Osweiler in for some of that season. It was weird. But yeah, that's like one of the last cases you'll see. I don't know why I went on that tangent, but it reminded me of it. Fields could have a Goff type of career if Smith is what we hope. That's my point. I can see the comparison there a little bit. Now, I don't think that Jared Goff. They're different players. I get what you're trying to say in terms of like career arc. Jared Goff is very good. If Justin Fields ends up being Jared Goff, then home run for the Steelers. I don't, because I mean, look, Jared Goff threw for 4,600 yards last year. Again, I understand what you're saying. You're not, it's apples to oranges. Your career arc, not player for player. I get that. Yeah. I don't, it's not quite the same, but I get where you're coming from with that. I get where you're coming from with that for sure. Fields wide receiver 3A. Don't be talking like that. No, none of that. I also don't like that when like people are like, just put him at receiver. No. I'm excited to see what they do with him, though. Again, if they have some sort of package, which I assume they will, right? I don't think Smith is. Now, look, you'd be dumb to say, yep, we're going to have a Justin Fields package, but like, I don't think that's been confirmed or anything like that. So, excited to see what he can do. Absolutely. Again, a guy who has a lot of talent, a guy who, is asked to make, chicken salad out of chicken, a lot in Chicago. Did the best that he could. And look, if you were to put, a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes in Chicago, would they have won more games? Yeah, that's because Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are the two best quarterbacks in football. Just because Justin Fields isn't Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, that doesn't make him a shit quarterback. And again, that's the problem with a lot of the way that people view football and view sports in general. You're either great or you suck, and I hate that so much. So much more that goes into it than that. So I think that, in a situation like Pittsburgh, and again, got to get that other receiver and whatnot. But right now, here, I'll throw the numbers back up just in case people are tuning in late. And by the way, go read the piece at Behind the Steel Curtain that I did making the case for Justin Fields. So, passes of 20 or more yards downfield, 10th in catchable pass percentage, 7th in passer rating, 5th in touchdown percentage, and he was PFF's 4th highest graded deep ball thrower. And when it came to being under pressure, he was 4th in catchable pass percentage and 3rd in on-target percentage. And then when you throw on the move passing, he was 1st in catchable pass percentage, and he was the only quarterback in the NFL, minimum 10 pass attempts of 15 or more air yards, to have 100% of his passes be catchable. And he was 1st in the NFL in on-target percentage with passes that went 15 or more yards down the field. So there's clearly something there. And again, he's a starting caliber guy. We've seen guys like this kind of have rehab years, right? Where, they don't pan out with either the team they got drafted by. They take kind of a gap year either to learn and then go somewhere else, or, eventually take the reins. I think that's kind of what the Saints wanted Jameis to be. Once Drew left, Jameis was a starter. And look, Jameis put up, there was that game week 1 against Green Bay in 2021. 2021? I think it was 2020, 3 years ago, where he had 5 touchdowns. Now, a lot of that was the Saints had a lot of turnovers, and he had 100 yards passing. He didn't do much of anything. But, he went from Tampa, spent a year under Drew Brees, and then once Drew Brees retired, okay, Jameis was the guy to be the starter. And then Jameis got hurt, right? who the hell who replaced Jameson? And I'll figure that out later. Point being, situations like that. Or, it can be a situation like Baker Mayfield, where he was cast off by Cleveland. Hopefully, it doesn't end up, being where Justin Fields bounces around from, Carolina to Los Angeles and then Tampa to finally find his way. But it's a guy in Baker Mayfield who, once he found the right fit in terms of offense and had the guys around him to be successful, he was. And he earned himself a nice payday. 3-year, $100 million contract for Baker Mayfield. So congrats to him. So, I think that Fields can have something of a Baker Mayfield type arc without the bouncing around beforehand. If he lands in a situation that's productive for him and Pittsburgh, and an offense and Arthur Smith's offense that fits what he does well. Lean into the run stuff, but also the deep ball passing. And hopefully, we can become, better when it comes to the intermediate stuff. So that's kind of been his biggest issue. Again, it's the progression and the reading of defenses over the middle of the field. But again, I think being in a situation like Pittsburgh will certainly help. And once we get to Latrobe here in about 5 weeks, I'll tell you what he looks like. Or if you're going to be at Latrobe yourself, you can see what he's going to look like. I'm sure a lot of you watching will be in attendance for at least one day of Steelers training camp if you're in the area, or you can make the trip. I know a lot of people do that as well. It's always a very fun time of year. And I'm very glad that they didn't have mini camp this week because it is scorching. I'll take a quick minute to do some housekeeping stuff. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Monday through Friday, throughout the off season, daily Steelers show, Black and Gold Breakdown. You can also watch every episode of The Pump Fake or listen to The Pump Fake wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're not subscribed to the channel already, please do. Good stuff all around. If you have any questions, you can drop those as well. But in terms of like the quarterback battle, it's going to be Russ week 1, barring anything catastrophic or barring injury. So I don't expect anything to change on that front. Russ came into this with, quote unquote pole position. I think he'll remain there. But I do think that we will see some sort of Fields package. However many snaps per game, I don't know. Between 5 and 10, if I had to guess. TJ, Mika, and Cam aren't trying to hear hopefully and potential. That's why they recruited Russ. And look, it's not as if Russ was perfect last year either, or the last 2 years. Like both of these guys are in Pittsburgh now because of differences in terms of, hey, with Chicago, like, hey, we're just gonna have a fresh start with Caleb Williams and we'll send you where you want to go. Or in Denver, which is kind of the opposite, where they were just kind of at odds in terms of Russ and the organization with money. And they just ate the dead money over the next 2 years. And now Russ gets somewhat of a fresh start. Like, yeah, Russ was better, I would say. But it's not as if, he was terrific. So. Hit the like button for the cause. I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you. I hope Russell Wilson turns into 2019 Tannehill. And look, that's another reason why I think both of these guys can succeed. Whoever it is. Like Arthur Smith did a lot of good things with Ryan Tannehill and helped turn him into one of the more productive quarterbacks in football. If you look at that 2-year stretch from 2019 to 2020, they were second in success rate through the air, only to the Chiefs. In success rate, it was Patrick Mahomes, Ryan Tannehill. That's absurd. And a lot of that was because of the offense. And a lot of that was because of what Arthur Smith did. So I do think that there's a lot to be said about Smith's capabilities as an offensive coordinator. And we're going to see a lot of different stuff. That's another thing, man. Like, it's just going to be different and new and modern. It's going to be an NFL offense. And that has me excited. Oh, man. By the way, I don't know if you guys are following along. I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here. It's probably not going to happen, but I'm making a bit out of it. I am trying to make Netflix let me do the play-by-play for Steelers Chiefs on Christmas, because it came out that they don't have anybody to do either game yet. So I've been berating Netflix for the past 2 days on Twitter saying, let me do it. I'll do it. I think I'm pretty... Now, have I ever done play-by-play for an NFL game? No. Have I done play-by-play? Yes. I don't know if Slippery Rock University has that footage. Probably not, if I had to guess. But I've done it. So Netflix let me do play-by-play for Steelers Chiefs on Christmas. I live in the city, 20-minute drive from the North Shore. Let me do it. What's the worst that could happen? Ball's in your court, Netflix. You think Buck and Aikman are going to want to come to Pittsburgh on Christmas? Hell no. Let me do it. So yeah, there's my tangent for the day. Any thoughts on the national media's outlook on the Steelers? Seems 50-50 of 7-10 predictions versus 10+ wins in division contenders. Every year, a lot of people say, yep, this is the year that the Steelers collapse and have a bad year, and every year they don't. So I've said it plenty on here. I'll keep saying it. They won 10 games last year with a dumpster fire quarterback situation, the worst offensive coordinator in football, a god-awful offensive line, and a defense that was beat to hell by the end of the year. They are better at quarterback. They are better at offensive line. They are better at offensive coordinator. They are better defensively. The only place they got worse is wide receiver. And we all expect them to bring in somebody else from the outside. So I can't see them being worse than what they were last year. And if they can win 10 games last year, I think that they can win 10 games this year. So I'm right around the 10-11 win mark. I'm not going to go to 12 just because, again, I don't know what the quarterbacks are going to look like. Now, I do suppose the Titans had a number 1 seed with Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback. So, I mean, we've seen something similar, I guess. But, you know, I'm excited to see what this season does bring. I think they're going to be good. I think they can win a playoff game. I'm not going to hold my breath that they would win more than that. Like, I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I'm realistic. You know, I don't think they're as good as Cincinnati. I don't think they're as good as, you know, Kansas City, Buffalo. They're not one of the elite teams in the AFC. But depending on the matchup, I do think that they can win a playoff game. Arthur Smith got Tannehill 55 touchdowns in 2 years, and Russ already has the second highest touchdown percentage in NFL history. Well, that's a stat that I wasn't aware of. Yeah. Yeah, I think just seeing Russ in OTAs and minicamp, like he looks very good. Again, I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be elite, but I think that he can be pretty solid in this offense. So they had a 2,000-yard running back too. Yeah, I mean, Najee and Jalen Warren, neither of them are Derrick Henry. But, I mean, if you look at their combined numbers last year, what did they combine for on the ground? It wasn't a small number. I know that much. They were 8th in the NFL, I think, in success rate on the ground. Now, let's find out real quick what Najee and Jalen combined for, because now I'm curious. And again, I know it wasn't a small number. So Najee had 1,035, Jalen Warren. So they combined for about 1,800 yards on the ground. Pretty damn close to 2,000. So with a better offensive coordinator, I think that they can do some damage on the ground, because they did damage on the ground last year with a bad offensive coordinator. And this is a guy who specializes in beating teams up on the ground. No, like it's going to be a lot of his outside zone philosophy stuff, but it's going to be some gap stuff included as well because they got a lot of guys that can block in space and are very good in space. So I think it will be, I think their offense will be much, much improved. And again, it's a low bar. I agree. It just seems like the Steelers are much more of an enigma than most of the teams around the league. Yeah, they're strange for sure. They are certainly one of those teams where you are either one side or the other. How is Justin and Russell looking throwing the ball over the middle of the field in camp? Trying to think of like specific examples that I can give you. There was one, the second day of minicamp that I was there that Russ made that was very anticipatory and showed that he was getting more comfortable in the offense. It was in team drills. They were doing like scrimmage stuff. Stepped up in the pocket under pressure, made a throw across the middle to, I want to say it was Quez Watkins. And in terms of Justin, he had a play, I want to say it was the last week of OTAs during team drills where he made a throw deep into Marquez Callaway where he just ripped it in a very small window. And it was a very nice throw and catch. So, I mean, both of them have had moments during scrimmages. Russ has had a few deep ball connections. Both of them had deep connections with George Pickens on the second day of mini camp during team drills. So again, both of them have looked solid at different points. Russ has looked more consistent of the two. Russell Wilson is better than Tannehill. Yeah, that's probably fair. And if you remember at the time, the situation that Ryan Tannehill was in, like it's very different too, because Russell Wilson was very much on a Hall of Fame trajectory before he went to Denver. Ryan Tannehill very much was not when he went to Tennessee. So a little bit different. Hindsight. And look, if Arthur Smith can get anything close out of Wilson and or Fields to what he got out of Tannehill in 2019 and 2020, then Pittsburgh's in great shape. Spent most on defense and why they're in the position they are in. I'll agree with you on that. Like a lot of the Steelers' issues is they kind of play in the past. And I think a lot of, Tomlin's a defensive-minded head coach. And of course, he's going to be defense first. But in today's NFL, you can't be. You got to be forward-thinking on the offense. The Steelers, when they won the Super Bowl in 2008, their offense wasn't great. Like, yeah, they had Ben, which was, a nice get-out-of-jail-free card, especially late in games. But the offense wasn't great. Ben had 17 touchdowns that season, 15 interceptions. Offense wasn't great. They weren't a great running team. Like their defense is what won them, what got them there. Now, obviously, Ben won it late in Super Bowl 43, but the defense, when you look at their performances throughout the year against Dallas, against the Ravens in both games, trying to think back to that 08 season, even the games they lost. Like they lost to Philadelphia in week 3. And they only allowed 15 points. They lost 15-9. Ben got sacked 8 times. So like that defense is one of the best in NFL history. And I think that Tomlin has gotten stuck in the past a little bit. That's probably the biggest criticism you can have of Mike Tomlin right now is that, especially the past few years, he's just been stuck in the past. And the game has started to pass him by. So. But it does seem that they have kind of realized that and have tried to, make some progress offensively. Russ's strength is play action. Arthur Smith is famous for play action as well. Yeah, again, I think that there's a lot that this offense will play into in terms of Russ. He's going to be a good fit. Russ just gives us the best chance to win. And look, I don't necessarily disagree with that right now. I think that he's probably the best bet to start. and then you kind of see what happens, man. I'm excited regardless. Ben was in the old NFL, like when he came in, like even thinking back like to 2004. Like 2004 is much different than 2024. It was starting to transition into what we're in now because you had Peyton who threw 49 touchdowns that year. A few years later, Brady threw 50. So it was like transitioning, but like you can go watch like NFL primetime from like 2004, 2005. They're on YouTube and like look at the end of each game when they're done commentating on it, when they put the stats on screen, look at the quarterback stats. Like they are not what they are today. You have guys that are like, oh, so-and-so went 13 of 20 for 113 yards. And then you look at the running back stats. Oh, so-and-so carried the ball 27 times for 119 yards. It was again, transitioning to the game that it's become now, but it definitely wasn't what it was today. So definitely agree with you there. Well, that was a good question. Name the last time the defense won a championship. Probably the Broncos in 2015. That's probably the last like defense wins championship Super Bowl team because Peyton wasn't good that year. And you had Osweiler that came in. He played well and he earned himself a massive contract because the Texans were dumb. But that's probably the last defense where you can say, yeah, the defense won them that Super Bowl. Probably Denver. And honestly, man, like probably the last one of those you'll ever see. Like, yeah, the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl this past year without their defense, but they also had Mahomes. So like they always had a chance. Again, I don't think they don't win it without their defense, but when you have Andy Reid and Mahomes, you always have a shot. So I get the question you're asking, and I would say the Broncos in 2015. I'm not sure why people are saying George Pickens will get less targets with Arthur Smith. Ritter is god awful, and he's a way better OC. Well, because teams can just say, okay, well, we're just going to double George, and good luck beating us with Van Jefferson. Now, again, I think that they're going to get another receiver, but as it stands right now, if they were to line up against a defense, that's like if they played Atlanta tomorrow, they'd be like, okay, well, cover George, double him. Good luck, everybody else. Beat us. And look, if you can beat teams with Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, then I think that they'll just say, okay, tip of the cap, great job. But you can't bank on doing that week in and week out. So they got to get somebody else. Colbert wasted Ben. Well, hard to say that he wasted Ben when they went to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them. In the later years, like, Killer B era, sure, I hear you then because they couldn't build a defense for anything. And it's still pretty hard to fathom that they didn't make it to a Super Bowl and didn't have the success that they should have in that era. But hard to say that he was wasted when... Now look, from like 03 to, I don't know, 2012, Kevin Colbert, thumbs up. But once the game started transitioning to what it is now, thumbs down. 7 had a few years left in him, but the Steelers ran him off. Canada didn't. Look, man, Ben Roethlisberger's arm was basically stapled onto his body before every game. Like, Ben didn't have the velocity in his throws anymore to consistently go out and be what the team needed him to be, especially over the middle. That's why, like, go look at his passing charts, his final 2 seasons. They very, very rarely threw the ball like intermediate to deep over the middle because Ben didn't have the arm to do it anymore. Like, if you're throwing down the sideline, then it's going to end up with either a catch or it's just going to go out of bounds. That's why they didn't throw the ball over the middle a ton, because he just didn't have the arm to do it. Don't forget about the Patriots in 2018. Again, though, when you have Brady and Belichick, like, you're always going to have a chance. And I understand that Peyton Manning was on the Broncos that season, but Tom Brady played well in 2018. Peyton Manning did not play well in his final year. All right. I know a lot of people have comments. I did notice this last show, people started like putting in super chats. If you want your comment to be highlighted and giving the attention first. A super chat's the best way to do that. I appreciate everybody who does leave super chats. It's very nice. Thank you for doing that. So just going forward, keep that in mind, because eventually there is going to be too many comments where I just can't get to all of them. So just keep that in mind going forward. Ben got super slow, but he was great. Yeah, like look, even in like the 2020 year, Ben still threw 33 touchdowns. He adapted to the player that he became, where he didn't have as much zip on his passes, but he was still Ben. Like he still had that mentality, and he could still get the job done. After Shazier got hurt, never able to get it going again. Yeah, they couldn't really fill that spot until now. Now they have 3 really good off-ball linebackers. So let's see another quarterback. Quarterback coming to the NFL ready to start. There are no projects. Lance was a project. How's that working? Almost all other NFL starters come in and start. It's also a very different, quarterbacks today, throughout, like from middle school on, there's camps. There's 7-on-7s. There's 7-on-7 camps. There's high school quarterback camps. Kyle Shanahan, Peyton Manning, they all have camps. Very different quarterback development now than it was, in 2003 when, Carson Palmer went number 1 overall and didn't play a snap until his second year. Now I understand that Patrick Mahomes didn't play until the final game of the regular season of his rookie season, but that's very much a rarity. And as soon as he took over, it was evident that, damn, they maybe should have started him as a rookie because he's clearly ready. But it's incredibly rare now that you see, if a guy's taken top 5, top 10, first round in general, like they expect him to start. And it's because they have a much different path to the NFL than guys back then did. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. We got about 200 eyes on us right now. So thank you guys so much for watching, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube. Appreciate it. And again, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. What are we at right now? Here, I'll give live updates every show for the subscriber count. Subscriber count is 1,130. Huzzah. Appreciate that. The 11 or no start was nice. That was the weirdest season ever. Like week in and week out, that was just... I remember because the game against the Cowboys, they almost lost to Ben DiNucci. The game against the Ravens in Baltimore was crazy, and it came down to the last play where Minka basically clotheslined the receiver as the ball got to him. What other games? Oh, that was the year that Claypool had 4 touchdowns, and everybody thought he was going to be great, myself included. So, yeah, that was a weird year. Who'd they play week 1? They beat the Giants on Monday night, week 1. They played the Broncos, and Drew Lock got hurt, so Jeff Driscoll took over. And they beat the Broncos, but Jeff Driscoll almost came back. That was irritating. They beat Houston in Pittsburgh. Who else did they beat? They beat Tennessee in Tennessee. They beat Baltimore on a Tuesday, or is it a Wednesday? And RG3 was the starter. Trace McSorley threw a touchdown in that game. Fun fact. Who else did they beat? They beat Cleveland at least once, right? Yeah, they beat Cleveland in the first game. Yes, because Baker Mayfield threw a pick 6 to Minka Fitzpatrick that game. I do remember. Beat Dallas. Yeah, it was a fun year. Beat Jacksonville. Sounds about right. They beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville. I seem to remember a game that took place in Jacksonville against a bad quarterback before Trevor Lawrence was drafted. Love and greed. Yeah, Jordan Love is a really good example, actually, of guys coming in and sitting. It's a rarity, And he's very much the exception in today's NFL, not the rule, but that is a good example. If Pickens improves and Russ is Russ, I think the Steelers offense could be a Detroit Junior offense. They have similar styles of personnel if you look at each position group. Only difference there is that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a slot receiver predominantly. George Pickens is not. Now, he has said that he would like to play in the slot more, and I would like the Steelers to use him in the slot more because, teams like Detroit and the Rams are showing you, if you can get a receiver in the slot against smaller corners and linebackers, you can take advantage of that. So I would like to see that be utilized a little bit more. Is that the Jags comeback game? Deep ball to Juju, Ben-Hur Oaks? No, they won that game against Jacksonville pretty handedly. The comeback game was in 2018. Yeah. Sounds about right. So, you got any more comments you want to get in? We'll stay on till we reach the hour mark. We're at the 56:30 mark. So a few more minutes. If you have any other questions, comments to get in beforehand. Oh, goodness gracious. Feeling that voice top out right now. But again, appreciate everybody for watching. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. Try to make this open forum part of the show. And again, as we get more subscribers and the comments become more frequent, that's when we'll start utilizing hey, if you leave a super chat, I'll get to you first. Not trying to take your money, I promise. It does help support me though. So if you did leave a super chat, especially yesterday, I know a few of you did, it's very much appreciated. But eventually, as this keeps growing, that's just what we're going to have to do. But I appreciate the hell out of everybody. Now, that's not to say that, I'm only going to take super chats. That would be douchey. But if you want, first come, first serve, that's how we'll do it. Do you agree with $275 million to Lawrence? I didn't see a problem with Trevor Lawrence getting the money that he got. I think Trevor Lawrence is very, very good. So I had no issues with the deal. A lot of people were, box score watching and whatnot. I look at that as a lot of money, but when you know you have your guy, especially in today's NFL, you lock him down and say, okay, we have our guy. This is who we're going to build around. And like we talked about yesterday, yes, that's a lot of money, especially, annually. I think he's making $55 million a year. All 55 of that isn't going against the cap. They're going to divvy a lot of that up. And he had a $37 million signing bonus. So there's ways that you can divvy that up where it's not against the cap. So yeah, I thought the Trevor Lawrence deal was fine. I think he's very good. I'm very much a Trevor Lawrence truther when it comes to that. Lawrence's deal will be cheap in a couple years. That's another thing. You want to be the first to pay your guy because, and for the Jaguars who usually aren't ahead of these things, they could see the market and where it's going, and Dak's got to get paid. Jordan Love's got to get paid. Tua's got to get paid. Eventually, Brock Purdy's going to get paid. And so the Jaguars saw a looming field of quarterbacks that are eventually going to get paid and be like, okay, you know what? Let's just be the first to pay ours. And similar to what Mahomes' deal and Josh Allen's deal, in a year, we're going to look and say, oh, okay, yeah, good on them for doing it first and getting ahead of this. Now, I will say this, though, too. Eventually, there's going to be a team that just says, no. And I think it's going to be San Francisco, where they just say, to hell with the market, Brock Purdy. We're not going to give you, $58 million per year. We'll give you, 45, 46, 47, 48, somewhere in that range. And you can, we'll put incentives in your contract where you can earn more, but we're not going to give you that much money. And if any head coach has proven that he can win with multiple quarterbacks and get to the Super Bowl with different quarterbacks, it's Kyle Shanahan. And if there's an organization that's proven that they can, do things with different guys, it's the 49ers. So the Brock Purdy contract, I think, will, one way or the other, very much impact future deals. So that's where we'll leave it for now. And, maybe the Steelers are in the quarterback market next year. Maybe it affects them. So we'll see. Again, appreciate everybody for watching, however you're watching, whether it's on YouTube, Twitter, respectively. I do appreciate it very, very much. Be back tomorrow, hopefully, to talk about, a receiver trade. That would be great. I know that that's going to be what people are expecting and wanting, especially after the Steelers just released a receiver. So we'll see where it takes us. And in the meantime, like I said, I'm going to be developing just a list of my favorite Steelers ever, and probably do that Thursday. Or if they don't do a receiver trade by tomorrow, maybe we'll do that. Just do it tomorrow, just for the funsies. So if you want to have a list ready as well, you can bring it. You can drop them in the comments. We'll have a little fun doing that. Again, it's going to be June 19th. If they don't trade for a receiver, we already did a receiver show. So hold on, I'm seeing some things. I'm saying R.I.P. Willie. Did I miss something? Who's Willie? I'm seeing multiple Willies. Fill me in on this real quick because I want to be respectful if somebody actually did pass. So let me know real quick. And did I seriously? Did I miss something? Something happened? Who's Willie? Before we get out of here, I would like to know. I'm scrolling Twitter. I don't see anything. Oh, well. Regardless, yeah, tomorrow will probably be the favorite Steelers show. Oh, Willie Mays. Oh, did Willie Mays pass away? Well, then, in that case, yes, rest in peace to Willie Mays. One of the most important athletes of the last, 70 years? One of the best athletes in that time as well. Trailblazer in a lot of ways. So, yes, rest in peace to Willie Mays. Thoughts to his loved ones. Yeah, that's sad news. Well, I hate to end it on a bummer, but yes, rest in peace to Willie Mays. Thoughts to his loved ones. Tomorrow, we'll make it official. Tomorrow will be the favorite Steelers show. How about that? So basically, we're just going to, again, you can name some in the comments as well tomorrow. Just talk about your favorite Steelers. If I see some good ones, then we'll talk about it. So I'll bring my list. I'll put them in like the little banners at the bottom of the screen. So we'll talk about our favorite Steelers tomorrow. I think that'll be good. Unless a receiver trade happens, and obviously we'll talk about that. So bring some names. Again, this doesn't even have to be your favorite ones. If you just have like obscure names that you remember, that'll be very fun. So that'll be tomorrow's show. Favorite Steelers show. Good time. And then sometime next week, we're going to be doing the all-time Steelers draft. So that'll be very, very fun with all favorite Steelers writers, content people. It'll be a lot of good stuff. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. Stay safe. Take care. We'll be back tomorrow on a Black and Gold Breakdown.